Hello, I am Ron Baker, and this is Empowered at Last. I am so glad that you're here to be a part of this conversation about life. How to create a life of meaning, value, and purpose. Today I want to talk about the wacky world that we live in and how often I hear people say, "What can I do to make a difference in the world we live in?" The issues are so big, and boy, if you live in the United States, they are daily challenges and shakeups. So what can we do to make a difference? Well, today I want to give you 3 suggestions because it is my deep belief that all change in the world starts with one heart, one person, one inspiration, then coming together with other people who have a similar vision, a similar willingness to become involved, and joining together, we become more and more powerful. That is, after all, what democracy is supposed to be about. We the people. So, how does that apply to you and me? How does that apply to today? What simple, clear things can we do that make a difference? Starting out in our individual lives and then moving it into our communities and then moving it into bigger and bigger inspirations with other people. The first of 3 things that I'd like to talk about today is identify what is frustrating to you. For instance, I've heard a lot of people say, "I am so tired of politicians who say one thing and do another, who say this is their intention and don't follow through." So, if this is an example of something that does not work for you, that frustrates you in some way, then the first thing we can all do is look to our own lives. It's very easy to be frustrated with something someone else is doing, but am I willing to look and make sure that I'm practicing the healthy alternative that I wish that politician were practicing? For instance, do you say what you mean? Do you stand in your own compassionate truth? Are you clear with the people in your life around you? And then do you follow through with what you've said you will do? Sounds simple, but I know from living in the same world that you live in that quite often our fear can get in the way. Oh, the fear of disappointing someone, the fear of creating conflict, the fear of being seen a certain way that we don't feel comfortable to be seen, even if it's how we authentically feel. There are a lot of layers that we might have to navigate in doing this investigation on ourselves, but we need to begin. If we're going to ask for it from our leaders, then we need to make sure we're not saying, "How dare you do the very same thing that I do?" That's not going to work. So, begin to look at how you can communicate yourself in a way that you say what you mean. If somebody invites you to go to the movie and you're just really too tired, wouldn't you rather that person be honest with you? Be clear. "You know, I really am too tired to go this evening." I choose a simple example, but you can apply it to anything else in your life. Be clear. And if you say, "Sure, I'd be happy to help you with such and such this weekend," follow through. our word is so important for many different reasons. Number one, it's irritating when someone does it in our direction. It's just as irritating when we do it in someone else's direction. But let's talk about some other benefits. When you're clear, when you say what you mean, when you follow through on what you say you will do, your own nervous system becomes calmer because it begins to trust it's entirely possible to stand in my truth, to say what I mean, and to follow through. Therefore, I can trust that someone else is capable of the same thing. So often we grew up in families where mom and dad, or our siblings, or ourselves, we're not practicing these things. And therefore, we don't trust. We just throw out stuff because it gets us off the hook for a moment. Well, that's not going to set us up well. If we want to see change in the world, we got to start at home with ourselves. So the first thing I encourage you to do is evaluate and make sure that you are setting yourself up well so that your nervous system can be calm and clear. I know it's possible. Therefore, when my friends say this is what they intend, then you also feel safe to speak up and ask them to follow through with compassion. If you're willing to do it in their life, then you feel safer and more solid to ask that they do it in your life. We all have a learning curve. We're all going to make mistakes occasionally, and we're all going to disappoint one another occasionally. Let's just make sure it's not the pattern or the norm. So that's the first thing that you can do. Identify what it is that you don't like that's happening with the leaders, with the systems of our world, and come back and make sure that you are practicing the thing that you want to see. Number two, I'm going to jump to a challenging subject in this one because we have watched some major interruptions taking place in this year of 2017. We have watched people who have violated others, who have acted in ways that were not respectful, being called on their actions. And we've seen follow through, even with major players. Why has that happened? We've watched, as an example, some people in key positions as commentators on television, politicians, various players, you get the point, who have had a pattern of violation, disrespect, things that just are not going to fly in a world where we treat each other with decency and respect as a starting place. So what we're talking about is, where are you empowered? Let's look at what took place. The first players, it seems to me, this year who got interrupted and the companies followed through with asking them to be responsible or saying we can no longer support you being a part of our company, came because lots of individuals spoke up and decided what companies they were willing to support. So what happened with players on Fox News, as an example, is that people said, I am not willing to support this if you're going to be a part of supporting those actions. So interrupting what products were being advertised on those programs, saying, we can't continue to buy these products. You see, this is not opposing, it's not hurting, it's not creating any kind of violence. It's simply standing in our truth to say, I cannot support something that condones and supports the bigger behavior that is unacceptable. We have watched companies pulling their advertisement and got the attention through the pocketbook of the companies that then said we can no longer condone this behavior here. We can no longer support this individual who is making these alleged continued responses in their lives. I'm being as vague as I can because I don't want to word this in a way that suggests I know what they've done. I'm just saying what's been interrupted is many people saying the same complaint about the same person merely says the company will no longer risk supporting those choices or those individuals. We are making a difference by merely saying what we support and where we're willing to invest our time, energy, and money. These are huge components that we can use to make a difference in the world without opposing, without hurting, without violating. And of course, we have to apply it back to the first suggestion, making sure that we're treating people in our own lives with respect. Making sure that the way we communicate treats others with respect. It's always going to start with that first component. We don't have to violate someone physically or sexually to violate them emotionally or energetically with our disrespect. So let's stand for what we're willing to support, speak up in ways that merely interrupt the flow of what we don't support, and always come back to self. I'm practicing that, therefore I can ask for it in others more easily. So what is the third component that we can add to this equation? The third component is becoming innovators and inspirations of healthy alternatives. So again, it's easy to complain, it's easy to condemn that someone else is acting in a way that doesn't work well. But have we sat down and thought about what healthy alternatives we can offer and suggest? How often, when you are in a conversation that is going into a direction that doesn't respect a group of people, whether it's race, religion, sexual orientation, doesn't matter. How often are you in a conversation where people are acting in prejudice, judgment, etc., where you could merely direct it toward a healthier alternative? Now, I'm not suggesting that you jump in and condemn, just redirect. It's so important that we offer healthy alternatives to people because it's so easy to get caught up in habitual, oh, this is the way we've socially learned to interact and this is how we get a laugh out of something. That is not what we would really stand for if we pay attention. So it's always going to come back to making sure you're clear about your truth, speaking up in compassionate truth, being clear, supporting or not supporting something that stands for similar values, and making sure you innovate, encourage people with alternatives. Just like we would go to a child and say, "Sweetheart, it would feel a whole lot better if you would consider this instead of this." So let's just go from, instead of whining and complaining, if you would come and just be clear with me about what you need. It would be so much easier to hear you. This is simply a healthy alternative, and it sets you up so much better. So rather than spending a ton of time in the complaint, in the frustration, and fighting and opposing, I'm encouraging you to spend the same amount of time being clear with yourself, being clear about what you support, and being clear about ways to offer healing alternatives. If we do one, much less all three of these things, we can make a difference in the world around us, encouraging others, who then go out into their lives and encourage others, and before you know it, the inspiration of one heart has then inspired healing change on bigger and bigger scales, coming together to transform, enhance, improve, and change our world based on mutual value, based on things that are going to set us up well, period. That's the conversation for this week. I thank you for being here. I hope that you will take on the challenge of any one of these three suggestions, and your life will get better and better and better. Have a great week. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Before we close, I wanted to encourage a couple of things. Number one is to go to ronbaker.net. There you will find lots of clues for how you can deepen this conversation. You can also find a way to get the booklet, An Essential Guide to the 9 Nurturing Needs. This is going to be a core focus of how we're going to enhance the quality of your life from the inside out in all the episodes. So I encourage you to go there to get an overview of those 9 nurturing experiences that we all seek more than any other thing in our lives. I also want you to get involved in the conversation here. I really would like to talk about the things that are important to you, the things that you're concerned about or excited about. We live in a wacky world that is changing constantly. We need to learn to connect to ourselves, to count on ourselves, and to count on one another. So please either get involved at ronbaker.net or in the Facebook page, which is Empowered at Last with Ron Baker. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to deepening this conversation about life. And I close as always, choose well, live fully, and by all means, be good to you. Have a great week.